How was the cookie? All right. I want us, as you're working your way back into your seats, I want to take a little mental journey back into your youth, okay? So close your eyes for just a moment and see, some of you are saying that is so long ago, but it's longer for some of us than it is for you, all right? So go back to the first thing you can really, really remember wanting very badly. This is the thing that you told your parents, I've got to have this thing, whether it's a Christmas gift, birthday gift, or you just saw it on the shelf at Toys R Us. You saw that thing, and there was an aura around it, a glow. And you thought to yourself, if I get that one thing, then life will be complete. All right? Does anyone have that pictured in your mind? Who has that pictured in your mind? All right, we got several. I'm going to go mobile here. Hang on. Can we get this live? Is it live? Is it working? Okay. Morgan, we'll start out right here. What's that one thing?
I wanted the year 2000, the Barbie doll, really, really bad.
And did your parents get it for you?
My parents didn't get it, but I broke my collarbone, and then they bought it for me because they felt bad.
All right, so a pity gift of a Barbie doll. All right, who's got another story, the thing that you really, really wanted?
I was 3 years old, and I loved Barney at the time, and I wanted Barney at my birthday party.
And did you get Barney at your birthday party?
Most definitely.
You got Barney?
Yes.
And was life complete thereafter?
No.
Really good insight there. Anybody else? All right. Okay, we got one right here.
I'm Keenan. All right. So, like, when I was like, I think I was like 10, 11. I wanted a little mini motorcycle. And then I rode my cousins, and I fell, and then just said I couldn't have one no more.
That's a sad story. All right, any others right here? That one's hard to top. Okay, we got one more right over here. Running over. All right.
Not me.
Flip phone razor.
How old were you when you won it?
Fourth grade. Yeah. No, my sister did. Yeah.
That's really tough when you ask for something and your sister gets it instead. All right. Now, for me, when I was 3, it was a pair of shoes. They had red, white, and blue on them. And for some reason, as a 3-year-old, I was going through a really patriotic streak. Star stripes on these shoes. And I said to my parents, I want these shoes. And my parents said, those aren't any good. They'll fall apart on you. And so my little heart was broken. And I kept begging, please have these shoes. And finally, I got into the point of bargaining where I said this, and I quote, if you will buy me these shoes, I will never, ever, ever ask you for anything else again as long as I live. I didn't have to break my collarbone. I didn't have to fall off a motorcycle. They didn't give it to my sister. They bought it for me. And I took home the shoes. And I thought to myself at that moment, life is now complete. It doesn't get any better than this. It's even better than having Barney at your birthday party. Because we didn't have Barney when I was around, all right? That purple dinosaur came a lot later. It's even better than having a futuristic dinosaur at your party. I've got these shoes that I have wanted, and I've sworn to my parents I can never ask for anything again the rest of my life. Those shoes tore within a couple of days, and I threw them in the back of the closet and thought, why did I want these things in the first place? You ever been there? You ever gotten that thing that you always wanted, and you swore that if you got it, life would be complete? How long does that glow last? 3 seconds. I got 48 hours of it, all right? Listen to this passage from 1 Timothy chapter 6. Paul here is talking about false teachers, interestingly. And he says, but he segues really quickly into talking about money. He says, they're conceited, they understand nothing, they have an unhealthy interest in controversies and quarrels about words that result in envy, strife, malicious talk, evil suspicions, and constant friction between people of corrupt mind who've been robbed of the truth and who think that godliness is a means to financial gain. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. 3 things I take away from this reading of God's Word. The first is for Christians, and there are many Christians here today. Never view godliness as a means to get rich. And let me be honest with you. If you go out there into the workforce and you work with great character and integrity and honesty, then you are probably going to get promoted and do really well, and you might get rich. But always view your character and your integrity as a principal way of glorifying God rather than enriching yourself. Otherwise, the Bible says you're just way off target. There are some people who like to go to church so they can network because those are fairly wealthy, well-heeled people. We would kind of like to sell them our product. Jesus drove money changers out of the temple. Don't view godliness as a way to get rich. Don't go to church to make good business contacts. You be a godly person to glorify God, and you go to church to worship God, and you let everything else take care of itself. Number 2 is be content with what you have. You remember that doll, that motorcycle, that razor edge, those stinking tennis shoes, whatever it was that you thought would do it for you, and it didn't. The bask in that glow only lasted for a few seconds or a few minutes or a few days, and then it was gone. And what's the temptation? What do you immediately think next? I don't know what you think, but mine is, I got to buy something else, right? That didn't do it, but it wasn't my materialism that's the problem. It's just that I chose the wrong pair of shoes. And if I had gotten the Air Jordans, then it would have been okay, right? You understand what we didn't have Air Jordans when I was there earlier, but you get the point. If I just chose the right thing, it would be okay. And Paul says that's a fool's errand. You'll never have enough. There's this deep hole in you that only God can satisfy. Learn to be content with what you have. And the truth is, as Glenn has been telling us, modern finance has so many tools for you to dig yourself a really deep hole in your materialism. And it's difficult to get out. And third, the desire for wealth often leads to spiritual ruin. In some extreme cases, you might do unethical or even illegal things to get money. But in the normative case, you will find people, even Christians, God's people, who are consuming their time, their passion, and their energy trying to make more money. And in doing so, you can sacrifice your relationship with God. You can sacrifice your relationship with your kids, with your spouse, with your church. And the Bible has one word for that. It's called idolatry. And you've taken God off the throne and you've put money up there. And money is a good servant, but money is a terrible master. And you have to choose today who you're going to serve.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Dr. Starr. That's a great segue into what we're going to wrap up with today. We're going to talk about, as we wrap up, with investing. And I realize that most of the people in the room here, certainly just starting out in college, investing isn't at the top of your mind. But I want to introduce some concepts here that you can at least take with you as you move out through college and out from beyond college into your first career, and bring up a few concepts. The first question I always like to say is why? Why anything when you're looking at something? And the question here is why would you want to invest, or why do you need to invest? This is a stat that just shows that most people in America don't save enough for their retirement. And again, retirement's the last thing on your mind, and I get that. But I want to talk about some concepts here. But the answer to the question of why you should invest is simply because no one's going to do it for you. And when you look at the workplace out there, there's a lot of things that used to be the case that are no longer the case. And one of those is, does anyone know what a pension is? Be curious. Like one or two people. Pensions are something that probably your grandparents had, maybe your parents, probably not. But pensions were these great things where you could go to work for a company and you could work there for a long time, and then they would pay you a monthly payment after you retire. Is a great deal. And so there wasn't a whole lot of need or effort on your part that needed to be done in terms of savings, because there was a pension plan there. You were going to have some money. Those aren't around very much anymore, and I'm not going to go into the reasons why, but they're just not available that much anymore, with most companies not offering them. The other thing is, and I'm definitely not going to bore you with this, but Social Security is probably going to look a lot different than it does today. And that's the government plan where the government will pay you during retirement, essentially, and that's probably going to look different than it does right now. So the reason to invest, the reason to start saving and start thinking about saving money as you start your careers, is that no one's going to do that for you. So, briefly here, I want to talk about what is a 401k. A lot of people get out of college and they have no idea what a 401k is, and I don't want you to be one of those people. So as you get your first job, a lot of you are going to have the option or the ability to start saving into what's called a 401k. If you're a teacher, it might be called 403b or something different, but the bottom line is it's a vehicle, a retirement plan that gives you the ability to save some money out of your paycheck each month and accumulate funds for retirement. I think I missed a slide here, but in the context of the time that we have today, I don't have time to go into all the different types of investments, but when you look at your 401k, there's going to be options, and there's going to be different things that you can put your money into, and you need to be familiar with that and know what the different investments are. And again, I don't have time to go into that today, but what I would strongly encourage you to do in your time here at LCU is to, no matter what your major is to take a course or take an elective in the business department and take an investing class so you can learn what a stock is, what a bond is, what a mutual fund is, all that fun stuff that you may not enjoy. And my wife is a great example. She doesn't like this kind of stuff, but you have to know at least a little bit, because when you get out there in the workforce, you're going to be confronted with this, and you need to know what that is. So again, I would strongly encourage you to take some classes that go into that in a little bit more detail, and again, not having time to do that today. But the question would be then is how to invest, and in a broad sense, you want to have a diversified approach with that, and have your bases covered in terms of different types of investments, U.S., overseas, et cetera. Be patient, and I'm going to talk about that more in detail as we go forward. A lot of companies have what's called a company match, and all that means is if you put 3% into your 401k, they're gonna put 3% in as well for you. It's free money, so take advantage of that. And I get the question all the time: how much do I need to save? How much do I need to start saving? The answer to that question is it's not black and white, and it's somewhat takes some deeper analysis. But the bottom line is, when you're young, Save as much as you can, period. Save as much as you can while you're still able to cover your expenses and manage your debt. So that's the answer that I give to that. So what I'm going to talk about now is the idea of being patient. And I don't want to bore you with a bunch of stock market slides, but I want to show you this. And this is a slide of the stock market. And this goes back to 2007 through today, okay? And probably you guys were going into high school, maybe middle school, but in 2008, our country went through a pretty major financial crisis, and the market, the stock market, was down over 50% over that time period. And you can see that big decline there. What's happened afterwards, from March of 09 through today, the market's up about 160%. But when you look at the media and the news and the bombardment we get with our cell phones and the computer and TV, we get bombarded with news all the time. And a lot of the news that you see could make an individual, such as yourselves, not want to invest anything. You might have that first job and the ability to put some money into the 401k, but if you watch the news and listen to the news, you might want to hide and put the money under the mattress. So what I've done here is I have a few headlines or a few magazine covers going back from 09 through today, and just to give you an idea of kind of what the media has been telling us. So you go back to March of 09, and Newsweek has, the end of the road, the economic crisis. Then we have Time magazine talking about the recession. Get ready for $150 barrel of oil, the mortgage mess listed there. Don't play chicken with the debt ceiling. This was in 2011. We're going through that again. Time magazine, talking about what recovery, America isn't working. And you go through all these magazines and you would think, gosh, things are terrible, things are awful. And my point here is that there were certainly things over the last several years that have been very, very traumatic for the economy and for people trying to work. And I'm not wanting to diminish that. But if you look at that solely as a reason or not to invest, you probably would have said, I don't want to invest anything in this scary time. Well, if the media makes us think that way, what are the experts? What do they say? And you guys don't know who these people are, and it's really not important that you know who they are. But these three guys that I'll show you some quotes from are very, very intelligent people, and they are very well informed. It's their job on a daily basis to pour over lots and lots of data and in the financial world and try to predict and try to look at where the market's going and try to time things. So this first gentleman, his name is Bill Gross, and he manages billions of dollars. In 2009, I'll paraphrase here, but he says, the 6-month rally that we see in the market is likely at its pinnacle. Well, you can see where that quote was, and then you can see what happened afterwards. So it certainly wasn't at the pinnacle. And then we have this other guy here. He works for a big company called Goldman Sachs, and he says, again, to paraphrase, we estimate that the market's going to fall by 25%, because there was all this concern about Europe and so forth. And then you can see right after that, the opposite happened. Then we have this last guy here in 2012. He rambles on, and I'm not going to read the quote, but basically saying that he's predicting a decline of 20%. My point here is that there are no gurus out there. No one has a clue where the market's going to go in the short run. I don't have a clue. I tell my clients all the time, I don't have a clue where the market's going to go in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year. But over time, the market has gone up. 100% of the time, the market has always recovered 100% of its losses and gone on from there. So my point here to you is that as you go out into the workforce, be diligent about investing and saving, because over the long term it will work out for you, even though there's going to be time periods where things look scary, and we're certainly always in those time periods where there's something going on, right? There's always something going on in the world, whether it's Syria right now, or there's all sorts of problems. But over time, if you're diligent, investing will pay off for you. And just remember that, people I like to say, turn off the news and turn on the music when it comes to listening to people about investment advice on the news, because most of the time they get it wrong. This is simply showing you, we went through that terrible period in 2008, and what this is showing is people, the amount of money that's come out of the stock market. And so 2008, people just were scared. The sky was falling. People moved a lot of money out. But then over the next several years, as the market was improving, they continued to pull money out of the market. Billions of dollars came out of the market. And when you look at, lost my slide there. But when you look at what people were doing, they were watching the news. They were watching all the experts and looking to see what they thought, and it made them not participate in the huge amount of increase we've seen over the last several years. So as we, not sure what happened with a couple of slides, but that's okay. We'll move on. As I wrap up here, I want to talk about two key elements to investing, and I want to keep this at a level that is appropriate for today. But those two key elements are time and compound interest. Okay, so let's pretend that you've graduated from LCU, and you have the opportunity to take a job, and I'm going to offer you that job. The downside is it's only for it's only for a month. You only have the job for a month. The other downside is I'm going to ask you to work every day of that month, and I need you to work, Saturdays and Sundays, so you don't get any days off. But it's only for a month, so hopefully you can do that. And I'm going to give you two different payment options. You can take $1 million right away, or I'm going to pay you a penny on the first day, and then I'm going to double that penny every day of that month. Which would you choose? Somewhat of a trick question, right? So what I want to illustrate to you is the penny doubled option. So on that first day you show up, I give you a penny. You're not too excited. Then I double that to 2 pennies the next day. As we move forward here, by the 10th day, you're all the way up to $5. Wow. Maybe go to McDonald's. I don't even know if you can do that. But over the next 10 days, that $5 has grown to $5,000. Still not better than the first option. Over the next 5 days, it's grown all the way to $167,000. Then over the next 4 days, that 167 has doubled 4 more times and is now worth about $2.6 million. And then magically, on that last day, but you had to be there. You had to show up every day. You had to be there every day and be there on that last day. You magically have $5.3 million. Now, that's why I say time, it's time. Time in the markets is more important, and it's not trying to time the markets based on what you hear from the news and what you hear from the gurus out there. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, this is not realistic, this isn't a real job opportunity, and you're right, it's not. But it illustrates to you the power of compound interest. So let's look at something a little bit more realistic. We have Mary and John here, and Mary came to a session very similar to this and said, you know what, I need to start saving once I graduate from college. So at age 24, she starts saving $4,000 a year for 10 years. So she has a $40,000 total contribution into her account. And then we have John. So he gets out of college and he wasn't too concerned with investing and wanted to have fun and didn't start investing until he was age 34. So he waited 10 more years, but he started saving $4,000 a year, and he saved it for 30 years. So he contributed a total of $120,000 into his account. Another trick question, but who do you think has more money at the time they're age 64? Mary. Both accounts earn about 8%. When they get to age 64, Mary, even though she only put in $40,000 over that 10-year time frame, has a value of about $583,000. John has about $453,000. She has 30% more, even though she put in about a third as much as John did, because she allowed time and the power of compound interest to work for her. So it's critical that as you go on from here, that you think about that and put investing as an important factor of what you're trying to do as you get that first job. So the other illustration I have to get all my props here. Is to talk about time. Now, again, I know that retirement is certainly on the last thing on your mind as you go into college, but I want to illustrate to you how time can really go by very quickly. Like I said earlier, I started college in 1994, and it literally seems like just yesterday that I was here. So time is something that goes by very quickly. So what I have here is a ruler, and let's say that you have a 90-year life expectancy. Unfortunately, you're going to pass away at age 90. And I have this ruler here. And this ruler represents, there's 6 different sections on here. And each of these sections represents 15 years of your life. So a lot of people, they want to retire when they're age 60. So the last sections here, the last 30 years of your life, you have to have saved enough money by the time you're age 60 to last you for 30 years. So let's go back to the beginning, into that first 15 years of life. Well, that first 15 years of life, it has nothing to do with investing. You're simply a kid who's growing up, having fun. So the first 15 years of life is essentially lost to investing. So then you get to that next segment of life, from age 16 to age 30. And age 16 to 30, most of that time period is spent getting an education, maybe finding your first job, figuring out what you want to do in your career. Little thought, a lot of times, is given to investment. So that period of time slips away very quickly. So then you find yourself in that time period between I don't know. You aged a lot. Well, anyway, I don't know what happened to my slide, but from age 31 to 45. And you get to that time period of life and you start to think, well, maybe I need to start putting away something because I don't want to work forever, so I need to save something. But it's also a time period where you might have some kids. You might need to buy a house. You might have more kids. You need to buy a bigger house. You might need to buy a bigger minivan. You might have soccer camp, piano lessons, private school. There's all sorts of things that come up during that time period. And a lot of times there's a lot of places to put your money and not very much money. And a lot of times investing is to put on the back burner. So here you find yourself now at age 46 with 15 years to fund a 30-year retirement. Time goes by very, very quickly, and the importance for you as you think about time and where you are in life is to think about not retirement, but think about the time that you have, and it's what you do with your time that's most important. So a few takeaways here from investing. Be broadly diversified, be patient, and remember that there are no gurus out there. And turn off, turn off the news, turn on the music, so to speak, and allow time and compound interest to work for you. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today. It's been an honor, and I wish you the best of luck as you move forward. Hopefully you've gotten something out of this today. So.
Alas, you're not done. Aww. But you're close. One final reading from Scripture. This is going to be the Word of God, so listen carefully to it. I do hope that you will listen to what Clint has said. I hope that you will build a budget, live within it, avoid that bad debt. I hope that you will start to invest young so that money has time to compound. Listen to these words from 1 Timothy chapter 6 as we close today, because there's one thing that I really hope that you will do more than anything else with your money, because the Bible talks about it time and again, and you saw embedded in Clint's budget this little line called giving. Listen to these words. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant or to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of life that is truly life. I want to ask you something. Why do you think God commands his people to give? This is the part where you can talk. Why does God tell his people give? To receive? Because some people need it? Yes. There are people who are not as fortunate as us. Now, if you're like me, your temptation is to look at rich people and say, poor me, I wish I were like them. The truth is, almost all of us in this room are among the world's elite privileged, because we have food and we have clothes and we have shelter and access to education. These are wonderful blessings. These are great reasons. Now, there's one other. I believe that God commands you to give so that you can be like God. Because God is a generous God. Did you catch that? God who generously gives us all things for what? For our enjoyment. And God wants us to be like him. He created us in his image. You remember that? And we kind of messed that up. You probably remember that part. And you've been a part of that mess up, haven't you? I certainly have. But the whole reason Jesus came down was to recreate us in the image of God. And he showed us this is what it's like to be God. And Jesus became homeless for us. He gave up what I understand is a really nice home in heaven to come down here and say, foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. He gave us his time. He gave us his passion. He gave us his energy. At the very end, he let them strip him of his clothes and rob him of his blood. And he gave us his very dying breath, because that's who God is. And he looks at us from that cross as he's giving us everything. And he says, I want you to join me. I want you to give everything I have. And that might not look too attractive, but the reality is that 3 days later, God raised Jesus from the dead. He took him back to heaven, and he was restored to everything he knew before, only this time it was different. Because he had given everything, he got everything. He got what he came to earth to get. He got the opportunity to save you and to save me. And the riches of heaven are that opportunity to God to live with you and me and all who call on the name of the Lord to be saved forever in heaven. God says that is what life is really about. You want to get, then you give. It is more blessed to give than receive, because when you pour out your life like Jesus did, God fills you up with his. Go out and be generous with your time, your money, and God will bless you. Thank you for being here today.